Okay, moving right along. We have been in the process for a number of months now updating Citrix. Many of you have had us at your libraries installing the new Citrix client or working with your local IT staff to make sure that the client works. So we just wanted to give you a little update on that. So first of all, Citrix is the software that we use to distribute the Horizon client. We do not try to install that software on every PC out in the region because there's a lot of them and there's not many of us. And we would be doing nothing but installing Citrix clients. So we run the client, Horizon clients. So we run the Horizon client on Citrix servers, and then you can connect to Citrix via the web, and it pulls the client software across for you as if it were installed at your own PC. So for any of you who have heard that term but just weren't quite sure what it means, that's what Citrix does. Cersei Dynamics also uses it for their software as a solution installs. It's a very common platform for the kind of situation where you're installing software across a big geographic area with a lot of PCs. So it's pretty important. It's not as important as Horizon, but then again, it's kind of academic because if Citrix isn't working, you don't have access to Horizon. So it's kind of a big deal. So why are we doing a big, complicated upgrade that's involved lots of new servers and lots of trips out to libraries and all kinds of upheavals? Well, the big reason is that the old version of Citrix that we were on has reached end of life. I have that capitalized because that's an actual term of art within the IT world. It means that the vendor is no longer providing support for the software. They're not fixing bugs, they're not providing security updates, and they're not helping you as much if you have problems. Their answer has just become, move to the new version. We do still have some support through our vendor that we purchased Citrix from, but that support is starting to dwindle. So there was a certain urgency in getting this upgrade done. But it is a major project. It involved new servers. It involved new software for running it, lots and lots of testing to make sure that it all worked with Horizon, which we did first internally and then at some selected libraries. This all was happening throughout the spring and summer of this year. But aside from the ball bat over our head saying you have to upgrade, there were some other reasons to do the upgrade as well. The new Citrix supports larger, high-resolution monitors. Yeah. Can I get a woohoo? And it also supports multiple monitors now. So if any of you are out there working with dual monitors, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. The old version of Citrix was developed in a world where people had one monitor, and it typically wasn't that big a monitor. So we have dual monitors here in a lot of our offices at Selco. I could have the Horizon client on one of my monitors. I could not move it to the other one. That bugs me. I have two monitors for a reason. I like that real estate, and I like being able to move things around. The new Citrix allows you to do that. The new Citrix also supports the higher resolution screens, and I know that's something that some of you have encountered. Whenever I try to use Citrix at home on my home PC, I immediately run into problems because my monitor is larger than what Citrix will support, so I have to do lots of futzing around and moving it and tweaking it and running it in its own little special window, and it's just a general pain. And I know some of you libraries have encountered that same situation. So the new Citrix, I screwed up my slides here. There we go. So the new Citrix takes care of that for us. A more behind-the-scenes benefit, which affects us and indirectly you, is that we are now able to run it through VMware. That is the server virtualization platform that we're using for our other solutions. So server virtualization is a presentation all on its own, so I'm not going to get too deep into that. But it allows us to run servers as software models on big servers. So instead of having lots of little servers for things like web hosting or email or things like that, we can actually create those as software constructs and run them on a bigger server. which allows us to do nifty things like move them from one host server to another if that host goes down for some reason. It allows us to automatically load balance, so if a bunch of you are logging into one, it'll shove some of you over to the others, so performance of the system is not affected. It also allows us to have greatly reduced amounts of hardware in our server room. We used to have close to 50 servers in our server room. We now have about half of that, mostly because we have virtualized. And then that in turn has greatly reduced the amount of electricity we use. It's reduced our cooling bill because all that hardware generates a lot of heat. It's fewer things to break because hardware is more likely to break than software because it's actual moving pieces. The old Citrix worked in a virtualized environment, but they had their own special virtualization platform, which meant we were using VMware, which is the recognized industry leader, gold standard virtualization platform, and then we had Citrix's. And it was pretty cool. And they needed that because an environment like Citrix has some special needs that VMware was not filling, so there were reasons for that. But that problem has been eliminated, and we've been able to load all of our Citrix servers now on that same VMware platform that we're using for everything else. That allowed us to cut even more servers out of our server room, and it means our technicians have one less operating system they have to learn. So, big deal for us. And then finally, this last one is a little controversial, so I want to really hit on it. The new Citrix handles spotty internet connections much more effectively. So I want to say that very clearly. It's a good thing. Having said that, it is a different thing from what we've been used to, and it has thrown a few sites for a loop. So I want to talk about that just a little bit. With the old Citrix, if your internet connection went down or simply sort of dropped a little bit, you know, we get those little micro drops where it'll drop for a split second or two, bam, you were out. You would have to restart Citrix. You would have to probably re-log into Horizon. Not always. Under certain circumstances, it would keep Horizon running for you, and it'd be there waiting for you when you got back. But you might have to completely re-log in again. And it was just generally a pain. With the new Citrix, it doesn't drop you out. The screen sort of goes gray, and a message pops up saying, you've lost your internet connection. You can't do anything right now. But the client stays there. And while you can't interact with it, once your internet comes back, presumably in a few seconds, you can actually just go right back to what you were doing. And this is a really good thing. We were really excited when we saw that because we do have some libraries that have less reliable internet connections than we'd like. So let's first of all say yay for that.
Yeah, yes, it is a good thing.
Now, why would that not be a good thing? Because it's a little different than what you're used to. As much of a pain as a dropped connection is, at least it's very clear you've dropped. And you know immediately, I've lost Horizon. What we're finding out at some of the libraries is that the screen doesn't always gray that much. The combination of monitor and video cards and drivers and hardware can make a big difference on that. So we have seen at least one library where the graying is fairly imperceptible. And that little message I talked about doesn't come up for 15 seconds after you drop. Because Citrix needs a few seconds to verify, are we really down or do I just think we might be down? And it doesn't stay up the whole time. It sort of fades in and then it disappears. And then it shows up someplace else and then it disappears, which is all very elegant and nice. But what it can mean is that if you're not really paying attention to your screen, you might continue doing things thinking that Horizon is running and accepting your input when it's really not. And we've actually had that problem at least one site. And maybe another one. We've got a couple of unexplained help desk questions that might be attributable to this. So I'm not going to say the feature is a bad thing, but it is different than what we're used to. And it really just kind of reinforces what we've always said, which is If you're working in Horizon, you've got to pay attention to the screen. If you scan a barcode, the barcode scanner is going to beep regardless of what happens in Horizon because the barcode scanner did its job. It sent the barcode over to the computer. If you don't see that number appear in the field, then for some reason you're not connected and you're not working. So you can't just sit, if you've got a cart full of items to check in, beep, 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 beep. I know it's really efficient to do it that way, but you've got to keep an eye on Horizon. And this isn't anything new. You had to do that before because things come up, block windows appear, hold messages appear, things like that. But this is just another reason. And it's also affecting checkout, which in the past hasn't been such an issue with that. You could sort of check out while you're talking to somebody and giving someone directions to the restroom and keeping an eye on your environment. But you really now, it's especially important that you keep an eye on the screen so that you can get the most out of this cool new feature. So what is the status on the upgrade? We have 9 sites that are yet to be upgraded. All but one of those are public libraries. We got the vast majority of the schools done when they came back in September because typically over the summer, school IT departments wipe the PCs and we're always reinstalling the client anyway. So it was pretty easy just to move them to the new one. Those of you who have the new client, you know that you're going to a slightly different website. Used to be automation2.celco.info. Now it's automation.celco.info, which is a small refinement that probably doesn't really affect anyone but makes me happy. I was never happy about that too. There were reasons we had to do that. It goes way back to a previous upgrade. It's nice that we can now just have a nice clean automation.celco.info. And then after that, it's pretty much the same. The screens look a little different, but you still log in and then you bring up Horizon. Our goal is to be done with this upgrade by December 31st. The holidays are coming up, which is going to cramp our style just a little bit, but I'm still pretty optimistic that we're going to make that. And then we will be able to decommission the old Citrix servers. Questions on that?
I think it's been great, our upgrade. It's solved
Kathy
a lot
says
of
it's been
issues.
great. Awesome.
Just yesterday, Harmony lost our internet connection, but it happened to go longer than 5 minutes, but
Okay.
there wasn't anything I could do. But it was great, it was still there, and we could see it, and
Great. So it does help in those circumstances.
It does.
If you're going constantly up and down, which unfortunately is a problem we're having in one of our libraries. Hi, Pat. It's still kind of nice, but it does make you pay attention a little bit more because you are constantly going up and down. But we're working with Charter on that, and hopefully we'll have that fixed soon. That's something else I was going to say. I can't remember what it was. It was probably brilliant, but now it's gone. Yeah, Rhonda.
And I know I'm not the only person that has this problem.
Yep.
Is there any way that, and there probably isn't any way to do this, but is there any way that you can get the cursor to behave like, you know, when you're checking things in, you know, and then all of a sudden it's not there? For no reason, I don't know. For no
Yeah.
I
reason.
think this has really helped ours. Since
Has it?
since we upgraded, our cursor has hardly jumped away.
Yeah, to be honest, there's a lot of variables that affect that. That's partly how Horizon behaves. It's local use of the PC, what other tabs you might have open in your browser, what other programs you might have running. There's a lot of things that affect that. So there's not much we're going to be able to do on that. And Tyler's telling me I got to be done. So.
Well, and repeat question.
Oh, what's that?
And repeat question.
Oh, thank you. I didn't repeat the question. Rhonda asked if there was anything we could do about keeping the cursor in a given Horizon field and not having it occasionally jump out so that you think you're scanning things in and you actually missed it.
It's not occasionally.
One more question or comment. All right. Thanks a lot.